What's up, Pinedale kids? This week we're going to be talking about some big moments where people had to trust God's plan. Have you ever had to trust someone even when you didn't know what was going to happen? Well, sure, all of us have. It reminds me of this really old movie about this guy who's looking for a treasure. And at one point, he's in a cave that comes to this narrow stone passageway that leads to a vast cliff that turns into a deep cavern. On the other side is the entrance to the cave where he'll find the treasure he's seeking. But there's this enormous gap standing in his way. The guy pulls out his father's diary, flips to the clue that has guided him to this point. The next clue tells him to take a leap of faith. Listen closely. He must trust in something beyond his sight. So he gathers all of his courage and he sticks one foot out and he steps out into the void and he doesn't fall. Instead, his foot lands on something solid. It's a hidden stone bridge that has been perfectly camouflaged against the rock face of the canyon. To his amazement, he doesn't fall. He regains his balance, and looking at the illusion from another angle, he sees how the bridge blends seamlessly into the rock wall. Well, he makes it to the other side, and to ensure his return, he gathers a handful of sand and tosses it across the path, making it easier to see. I like that scene from that old movie because it helps illustrate for us what this week is all about. Each devotion you read this week is about a big moment where people had to trust God's plan, even though they didn't know what was going to happen, and even though it didn't make sense. For example, on day 8, you're going to read about the Israelites at the Red Sea. The Israelites were trapped at the Red Sea with mountains on both sides and an army coming right at them, but God didn't leave them. No way, Jose. He made a path right where there was no path. And then all of God's people crossed over on dry land. Just like in that movie scene, God's people had to trust Him even though they didn't see a way of escape. On day 9, we read about Joshua and Caleb. There are 12 spies that Moses sent into Canaan, or the Promised Land, to check it out. When they returned, 10 of those spies were bad and they gave a very bad, scary report. But 2 of them believed they could win. Why? Simple, because they trusted God and not their fears. Sometimes the people around you might feel afraid or tell you that something isn't possible. But you can be like Joshua and Caleb if you are courageous and you trust God. On day 10, we're going to learn about Achan's disobedience. Now you need to understand that there is a lot that happens between day 9 when we talked about Joshua and Caleb and when we go to day 10 and we learn about Achan's disobedience. This big gap that's between these two stories can be found in the early chapters of Joshua, but you might already know part of this story. Joshua and Caleb led the Israelites into the Promised Land, but there were people already living there and the Israelites had to fight for that land. The very first battle they came to was a battle called the Battle of Jericho. Why was it called the Battle of Jericho? Well, that's simple, because the battle took place at the city of Jericho. God gave very clear instructions on what to do, but there was one person who didn't follow those rules. Want to guess who it was? Here's a clue. One bad choice led to big trouble for the Israelites. Achan thought he could hide his disobedience, but you can't hide from God. Achan? What kind of name is that anyhow? Never trust a guy named Achan or Seth. On day 11, we're going to read about Gideon's army. You talk about God telling you to do something that makes no sense, that's this story. The Midianites had an army of over 135,000 men. Gideon had an army of 32,000 men. God told him he had too many soldiers. Too many soldiers? Yep. So Gideon told them that if they were scared to go home, and 22,000 of them went home because they were scared. Side note, God can use you no matter if you are young or old or weak or unknown, but He can't use someone full of fear. Just saying. But get this, God said He still had too many men. So Gideon did this test to see how the men would drink their water. Some drank like dogs. Others drank a different way. I know it sounds silly, but in the end, there were only 300 men left to fight an enormous army.
What? Why?
It's simple, because God wanted them to trust His power and not their own. On day 12, we're going to read about Ruth and Naomi. You do know that the Bible is full of every kind of story imaginable, right? There's action. There's suspense. Dun dun dun! There's romance. There's mystery. There's murder. There's betrayal. There's triumph. There's danger. There's hope. There's revenge. There's a twist you never saw coming. And there's stories like the one that you're going to read on day 12. Naomi had a husband and 2 sons. The sons got married to 2 women, like they're supposed to. But then tragedy hit. First her husband dies, and then both of her sons die. That left the 3 ladies all alone. One of them moved away, but Ruth stayed with her mother-in-law, Naomi. Ruth showed faithfulness and trusted God's plan. And guess what? God took care of her in a big way. On day 13, you're going to read about how Hannah prays for a son. Hannah wanted a child so badly. She could have just given up and shut down. Instead, she trusted God even when she had to wait a long time to have her son. In the end, God answered her prayer. You see, God's timing is always perfect. You know, all of these stories remind me of a Bible verse in Proverbs. In fact, it's such a great verse, we're going to memorize it this week. Find your yellow poster and hang it up somewhere around your house. You can also wear the yellow wristband and the crab temporary tattoo. Remember that each letter on the wristband and the temporary tattoo stand for a different word in this week's verse that is also on the yellow poster board. It says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not depend on your own understanding. In all your ways obey Him. Then He will make your path straight." Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. That's a preview of what you're going to learn this week during XL. It's going to be a week full of incredible stories about trusting God no matter what. Be sure to do God's time each and every day. I'll see you next week. Later. Love ya. Bye-bye. And some of them drank a different way. I can't get the lid off. Oh no, I lost the straw. I can't get the straw out. Can't drink from a pink straw. I think I need more water in there. That really isn't working. It's like going down. Oh, it's going down my shirt. Like in reality, who drinks like that? They were weird back then. Kind of like how Seth is today. This is a paper straw. Look at this. It's a paper straw. It is literally falling apart. Why do people even like this? I'm still going to try to drink with this. Doesn't work. That's probably what it was. I bet it was. I bet it was 9,700 that got sent home were the ones that were drinking out of paper straws. This is no good. I spilt water all over the ground and now I'm going to have to clean it up. We used to have a guy on our staff that could drink water like really fast. And today I'm going to try to beat him. So I got a full bottle of water here. I got to take the cap off. You heard it break right there. All right, you're going to time me. You ready? On my mark. Get set. Go. Oh, brain freeze! I think I beat him.